All right, we're live and things are getting interesting around here. There's we got 2 weeks left in the season, really 2 games, less than 2 weeks. We got about 10-ish days, 10, 11 days. We got the race for the first pick in the draft. And we got a lot of opinions on where the Texans are heading and where they should go and what's going to happen. We're going to have DJ Bien-Aime of ESPN. He just got through riding. He's driving home. We'll get him in here. We'll also hear from the people, as we always do. And we'll talk about all of this. The one thing that I'm hearing more and more, and I appreciate everyone for coming in, subscribing to the channel, etc. I'm pulling up the interaction with myself and DJ so that when he comes in here, we can get into that. Bear with me. All right, there we go. There's the Twitter interaction. We'll bring that up when he comes in. But the one thing that I'm hearing that I really I can't really get down with is that Lovie Smith is somehow saving his job by what's going on or what's going to happen the last few weeks. If the Texans decide they want to bring back Lovie Smith, I don't think it would be the right decision. I think we knew what Lovie Smith was, and he's kind of a finished product. So I don't understand bringing back Lovie Smith. I don't think it makes sense. I think anyone who's watched the team, anyone who's kind of seen that Lovie Smith's kind of stuck in his ways, the lack of success, the lack of discipline, the fake hustle at the end of the season, to me, should not be something that solidifies Lovie's job. Like if Cal McNair and Nick Caserio are getting fooled because the Texans are competing with the Chiefs team that, by the way, the week before the Texans went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, you know who the Chiefs went toe-to-toe with? The Broncos. Broncos just fired their coach. Cowboys, that was a hard-fought game. You think it's possible the Cowboys were overlooking the Texans? I do. And at the end of that game, you had as much of a meltdown on defense as we've seen all season long. You beat the Tennessee Titans with probably the worst quarterback I've ever seen play an NFL game in Malik Willis. No disrespect. Seems like a great young man. Doesn't seem like someone who should be playing quarterback, at least at this point. Probably a little bit of development needed. You're going to face a Jags team that really doesn't have much to play for. Now, some people will say, well, they're going for the division. If they lose this game, it doesn't matter. Depending on what happens with Tennessee. So this game could be somewhat meaningless for Jacksonville. And then you're going to face a Colts team who just announced Nick Foles is starting at the for the rest of the season. So if the Texans wanted to bring back Lovie Smith, cool. You're going to have to sell the fans on that. You're going to have to explain that. But if what's happened these last few weeks is the reason why you're doing it, this organization doesn't have a chance in hell. They don't have a chance in hell of success if they're that simplistic and if they're that silly. I think that would be silly to base your decision on the end of the season and how hard they compete and stuff. Furthermore, and the bigger thing is, I think it's counterproductive to win these games. I don't expect them to try to lose them, but I think it's counterproductive for many reasons. I'll get into that with DJ Bien-Aime of ESPN. He'll be here in a sec. I'll just go through our interaction before he gets here. I tweeted that this pointless win after the Tennessee win, this is going to make the end of the season very stressful, which I think it will, because I want them to get the number 1 pick. And I've laid out why I think it's silly, the number 1 pick thing. Go back to a couple of days ago. I laid out the point counterpoint. We'll hear what DJ says. And I just asked him what was confusing. They're a win away from losing the number 1 pick. DJ said it's not confusing, but you can't expect players to lose just because of the draft slot. LOL. I don't know what LOL is. I agree with that. Like, I don't expect the players to lose. I've made that clear. And the Jets falling out of the number 1 pick wasn't the end of the world. It was who they drafted that drew things out, and there's no T-Law in this draft. First of all, I think missing out on Trevor Lawrence was the thing. That was the thing that kind of hurt them. I mean, I mean, we can say, well, they could have taken Justin Fields, or who knows what happened. We know what Trevor Lawrence was. So I do think that. And I also think that regardless of whether there is or isn't a Trevor Lawrence, their drafting at the top of the draft is beneficial. And having your choice of every single player or the quarterback that you think is best, it's better than not. Now you'll have the contrarian say, well, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round. I've heard someone say that. Or, the draft's a crapshoot. And dude, it doesn't matter. Like, yes, of course. Like there's examples of that all the time. And the draft can be a crapshoot, and teams can draft poorly. Like, yes, that can happen. But you still, if you're going to trust your guys to make the right calls, it's better to draft number 1. It's better to draft number 1 than number 2, regardless of what has happened. Teams might take the wrong guy, but it's better to draft number 1, number 2. And I also think the fan base is at a point where having the top pick, I think it goes a long way. I think the buildup, the Texans on the clock for all those months, I think it would go a long way, more so than just kind of being buried and hearing, what is Chicago going to do? Is Chicago going to, I think the fan base itself benefits from that. That's my whole thing. So we can play like the, contrarian, it doesn't matter and stuff. And the other thing I don't think that, like, these players, especially given the fact that a lot of these players aren't going to be here next year, I don't think that these players are really gaining anything from winning right now. Just like I don't think the Jets gained anything from beating the Rams 3 years ago and missing out on Trevor Lawrence. And the Jags losing and then getting Trevor Lawrence, I don't think that they're like suffering because of it. And I don't think they're suffering. Now, if they take an Aiden Hutchinson number 1, this goes back to you got to draft the right guys. Like Jacksonville clearly should have drafted Aiden Hutchinson number 1, and then things would be really scary. But they had the opportunity to do it. Just because they didn't do it doesn't mean, well, you wouldn't want the number 1 pick. They went with Walker instead of Hutchinson. That's probably something we're going to be talking about for a long time. But that's not like some sort of justification that getting the number 1 pick doesn't matter. But the fact that Jacksonville was losing all those games last year, and now all of a sudden they're finding out a way to win. And I know they're, have a losing record or whatever, and they're in a bad division. I don't think Jacksonville is like, you can say right now is one of the brightest teams of the future. They still got a long ways to go. But they changed their culture not by winning games. They changed their cultures by hiring Doug Peterson and bringing in some receivers and having a pretty good offseason. That's how it happened. Didn't happen with these hardo imaginary wins at all. Like that did not happen. Sam asks if I'm doing cap and trade tonight. Yes, I am. I will be there. Michael's asking if Nick keeps Lovie, might mean Nick wants out. No, I don't know why he would do it. He would have to explain it. Hopefully he would explain it in a better manner than the way that he's been known to explain things. But I don't think there's like some sort of like mystery. If Nick wants out, Nick could go. He could do whatever he wants to do. But if he keeps Lovie, there's not like any like deep thing. Front runner, the only thing is any head coach that's going to be coach has to be able to play the best player at every position, not Nick's guys. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Nick's like if the next coach that Nick hires is going to be someone that he believes is going to be here for a long, long time. And I do think Nick has a lot of assets that are valuable to coaches. Some have kind of labeled that as meddling. I don't agree with that. And I don't think Nick's like telling Lovie who to and who not to play. I just don't think that's going on. Maybe Jags take a dive so Houston doesn't get first pick. I don't know if the Jags can afford to do that. I don't know if they can afford to just, take 2 weeks off and then go face Tennessee. I like where your head's at. I like a good old conspiracy theory, but I don't really see that happening. OY, what's up, man? I think Nick is smart enough not to keep this staff. They have to win, man. 10 wins in 3 years is absolutely embarrassing. I know you, Lopez, and McClain know people that for sure know what's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, the people I talk to assume that Lovie's gone. I assume that. But look, with what's going on with this organization and, expecting things, I wouldn't, bet on that. I wouldn't bet on the certain, but yeah, if Nick keeps Lovie, then you should be concerned about Nick Caserio. Absolutely. Because where do you go from there? Because this offseason, the roster is going to get better. It's going to absolutely get better. The roster will absolutely get better. DJ's pulling into the crib, so he should be here in a sec. So we'll have DJ Bien-Aime live. The roster is going to get better. The team's going to get better. So what happens when Lovie goes out there and wins 6-7 games? Like, what are you going to fire him after that? I mean, now's the time. You've watched enough. And the other thing is this, like, if you're going to bring Lovie back, and I was okay with firing David Culley, but if you're going to bring back Lovie, you might as well have just kept David Culley, because at least David Culley wasn't a finished product. Like, we know what Lovie Smith is. What's he have? 5 winning seasons in 17 years of coaching? 1 winning season when he doesn't have Ron Rivera or Rod Marinelli calling his defense? Out of 11? Like, we know what he is. At least we and I don't know. I mean, there wasn't a lot of promise with David Culley, but at least we didn't know for certain what he was. Captain Stu, the only thing that matters right now is most Texans fans is securing that number 1 pick from a business perspective and thank you. Preach, man. If Texans don't get first pick, I could easily see a team like the Colts trade and get Bryce Young. And what if he ends up being a stud? That's a nightmare too. I've thrown that out there too. If Bears get number 1, they could easily trade out with Colts and play. Guys are smart. I just shat my diaper and I'm too lazy to go change. Damn, man. That's unfortunate. Brown Chubby Bear, King of Texans Reddit. I knew this sounds crazy, but having the first pick puts so much fan base pressure on the org. Have a later pick. Come on, man. You've got BCB, you got to stop with this Anthony Richardson thing and this undersized thing. You're too smart for this. Like, the undersized thing is funny, and I know it's a different position, but it's the same bullshit that you heard with Devontae Smith. I know it's a different position, but there's been nothing that has happened on the football field at Alabama that makes you question that Bryce Young's size is some sort of hindrance. There's been nothing. You've seen nothing. You can watch tape. You can do whatever. You've seen nothing that has shown that. Nothing. You've seen nothing that shows that he's fragile either. He's taken some hits. He hurt his shoulder a little bit, but you've seen nothing. Yet he won a Heisman Trophy. He dominated in the SEC, and he kicked a lot of guys' asses. I'm not saying that he's the sure thing. But what I'm saying is this is the same BS dialogue that we heard with Devontae Smith. Same exact dialogue. I think he's top 10 in the league right now in receiving. The only reason his numbers would probably be even better is they traded for A.J. Brown. We heard the same stuff about Devontae Smith, though. Despite the fact he was kicking everyone's ass in the SEC, despite the fact that there was nothing tangible that made you think that his size or his lack thereof was going to be a problem. I had to hear this same BS about Devontae Smith. He's too little. In the NFL, they're going to eat him alive. Well, I know it's the SEC, but this is the NFL. What's he doing now? What's he doing? So he got 1,000 yards? How many touchdowns? Stop, man. Unless you can show me something. And if Bryce Young ends up stinking, there's a chance he does. But show me how his height right now is an issue. outside of your internet pictures where he's standing side by side by guys whose asses he's busting on a consistent level. Stop, man. He's a fast processor of information. He's getting rid of the ball quickly. He's got the makeup and all that type of stuff. Show me something that matters with that height. Just show me something. You can't. When the Texans fire Lovie, a new coach will come in and bring a new culture. It's just another reason how meaningless this year is. I agree with you. We are on the same page. I think if Lovie stays and the next year is the same this year, they both might be gone. I agree with you. If Lovie stays and they don't make the playoffs next year, fire Caserio. That's how ridiculous it would be. The other thing is this, and this is another angle that I've kind of talked about on Twitter, and we'll get into this in the offseason, but you look at the head coaches. Last year, I think there were 10 openings. This year, how many are there going to be? 4? And you have all these names and your job's appealing. There's no longer a question of why the hell would you want to go there like there was the last couple of years. You can actually make a case. It's a good situation. There's no Jack. There's no Deshaun situation. It's a good opportunity. John McClain, next GM after Nick. Well, we would definitely be screwed then if McClain were GM. If McClain were GM, he'd probably bring in Dan Pastorini as the quarterback coach and Billy White Shoes Johnson as the wide receiver coach, and probably have the guys wearing leather helmets. I love McClain, though. Tuesdays on In the Loop. My guy. John says, listening to you is refreshing. Love your takes. Diehard Texans fan. I think you speak for the majority of the fan base. Man, I don't, the fan base, majority or not, it doesn't matter. Like everyone's going to have an opinion right now, and it's a frustrating time. So there's really no right way to feel. Like if you feel angry, if you have trust issues, if you feel they need time, as long as you're still in and locked in, and that's my goal is, cover this team daily in the locker room, etc. We have players on every week. By the way, Malik Collins is going to be on our show tomorrow, but it's going to be Brandon Scott and Sean Bajani. So give that a listen. Malik's going to be on there. I'll be judging the tailgater of the year in the gravel lot by the blue lot before. So if you want to come by, say hi if you're going to be at the game. And if you're not going to the game and you got tickets, throw them my way. I've already passed them on to a guy who's taking his son first time. We've been doing the ticket exchange. But as far as the fans go, I get on tangents. There's really no right way to feel, man. I'm just glad people are in. Like apathy is a bad thing. So as long as you're in, we're here. And if majority of the people side with me, cool. If they don't, it's cool too. But we're just covering this squad. Kyler and Russ are both undersized. This is true. Fire Lovie, start Driscoll, bench Tunsil, and Howard win the first pick. Yeah, I don't know if they would do that, but that would be okay with me. If the Texans win both these games, what would their draft position be? They could fall all the way down to 5th, which, God. Oh, man. But, yeah, they could fall to 5th. In some scenarios. J.J. Watt can coach the Texans. I don't know if J.J. Watt wants to coach. He might have too much going on. There's no reason to keep Lovie as HC. Run it back is a BS motto that needs to go along with Lovie. Agree. Oh, why? There's no way he is staying. I don't think so either. D'Amico Ryans would be nice. I concur with that. Texans need new unis. I think that's going to happen soon. I won't say how soon, but I'd be willing to bet you good money that in the next few years, maybe not next year, but in the next few years, we will see new uniforms and not like a BS, like small design on there. I'll bet you. You can take that to the bank. I think that will happen. Who would you pick for your coach? I would pick D'Amico Ryans for many reasons. Although there's a lot of very intriguing names, but my guy would be D'Amico Ryans. I don't know if that would be Nick's guy. I know that it would excite the fan base, but that would be my guy. My guy would be D'Amico Ryans. Nick Caserio, what's up, man? He says Lovie's getting fired. It's a matter of time. Appreciate you. Good old Nick. Jolly Nick. By the way, I think Nick Caserio celebrated a birthday the other day. It might have been 2 days ago. Wonder what Nick does for his birthday. Damn sure doesn't eat cake. Definitely doesn't booze. I wonder what Nick does for his birthday. Watch tape. I don't know. I do wonder, the decision on Lovie, hopefully it's been made. And then that's regardless of whether you're bringing him back or not. The nightmare is that they're putting stock in these games. And I think when a lot of people say this, the thing with the Texans and the fan base right now is that a lot of times when you say stuff, you're basically just saying it because you're trying to make sense of what's been a dumb organization, a poorly run organization. So when people throw out theories and stuff, a lot of time it's not necessarily like hey, this is what I think is going to happen, or this is what should happen. A lot of times you're trying to get inside the mind of Cal, or trying to get inside the mind of Nick, which is at times it can be a dangerous place, to say the very least. Manny, if we get new unis, I hope they don't go over the top like the Seahawks did, or like when the Jags. Man, they need those to look as different as possible. I don't care if the uniforms are like freaking Three Stooges style uniforms. They just need to get as different as possible. A little bit of a rebrand. What's Lovie do if he gets fired and keeps getting paid? I don't know. He just probably I don't know. Maybe they'll give him like a advisor spot. If we're bringing Lovie back, it's got to be for the long haul. Can't have a rookie QB learn a new system. Sure you can. It's happened. Trevor Lawrence did it. He's got a new system. He's got his second system. You absolutely can do that. For sure. It's happened many a times. Cap and Trade saying Boutte skipping the bowl game. Has he changed his mind? I don't know. I don't blame any of these kids for skipping bowl games at this point. I don't even like watching them, except the Texas one. I don't care about anything except Texas. I think we got DJ Bien-Aime here now. I think he's good to go. Let's see. Yep, in his white tee.
Yep, in my white tee.
How you living, man?
Chilling, man. What we got? 10 more days left before the season.
That's what I said. That was my whole thing. 10 days, countdown, off season, fun times.
Yeah, off season will for sure be a show. There'll be a lot to discuss.
What do you make of this theory? Because I think it's pretty troubling. And I'm not saying what the right answer is or what the wrong answer is, but if I were the Texans, I would move on from Lovie Smith. I would bring in my long-term coach, and that would be my decision. Whatever decision they make, I'm not saying, I'm not going to sit here and like say, what they should. They might have different reasons than me. But what do you make of like these next couple of games somehow deciding Lovie Smith's fate? Because that would be stupid to me. Why would Lovie Smith could beat the Jags and then beat the Colts, and that's what their decision is going to be based on? That seems just a little bit silly to me.
Yeah, I don't think if they're going to fire Lovie, which that's what a lot of the buzz is across the league, I don't think these last two games would change that. Even if let's say they finish 14, 12-1, I don't think that changes. You know what I'm saying?
2-14-1, 2-14-1. That's a lot of
games.
No,
I'm talking about they finished four. I'm gonna say they finished 4-12-1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that would really change much because it didn't stop David from getting fired when he finished 4-13. So he basically maxed the same win total from last year with a better roster. Like, why would that, change anything for the most part?
What's the case for keeping Lovie?
The case for keeping Lovie is they have been in the majority of their games, like, throughout the entire year. Like, it's rare where they've gotten blown out. You have the Miami game when he got blown out. You have the Cleveland game. You have the Commanders game. You have that one game against Tennessee where it was kind of funky, where like the score says 17-10, but they were never really like in that game after halftime. But the majority of the games they were in it. I mean, an argument could be made that if you have better quarterback play, you win half of those games. Because Davis, I think, threw like 7 interceptions on the entire year in the fourth quarter. So again, if you have better quarterback play, you're probably like 6-10. Yeah, you're probably like 6. I don't know, like 6-10, and you 2 more games to go. Yeah. So you're probably like 5-10, or even maybe 6-11 or 6-9, whatever that number would be. You're in that range because again, like it's hard to win when your quarterback throws 7 interceptions in the fourth quarter. Obviously, take out the Raiders game because they wouldn't have won that game because they gave up 21 in the fourth. Even Davis would have played better, even though he did throw a pick 6 there, but I don't think they would have won that game because of defense.
Yeah, that he actually played good. That pick 6, it was church anyways.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think you have that game. I mean, that's the only game where I can think like off the top of my head, like fourth quarter, like they would have won that. So yeah, I mean, there's a chance in a world where you have a really good quarterback, you have a good quarterback, or even like above average. You probably got like about 6 wins, maybe 5 wins, because it's not like the schedule has been like crazy tough. Like you faced some teams with winning records, but like it's not like those teams are like elite by any shit, like the Giants, the Commandos, teams like that they've lost to. But yeah, so I think those are reasons. The defense is actually solid. Like even though like they do give up a lot of yards, but for the most part they keep teams out of the end zone. But again, like the offense is just so bad that it's like, can you really like expect with a new quarterback, a young rookie quarterback at that, to come under a system with Lovie and be able to like be drastically better than Davis? That's a tall ask. If you want someone drastically better than Davis as a rookie, you're gonna have to have somebody that can really like scheme up an offense that can, lead to success for a young quarterback that can give you defined, easy throws consistently, that they always have schematic advantages week in and week out. Not just, we just got better players than you, but like legitimately, like we're creating, one-on-one matchups for our receivers to win in space, to pair along with our very good run game.
I also think the defense kind of benefits from the crappy offense, and in like a weird way where I don't feel like teams feel like they just have to press them on defense. Like Washington, I know Washington's limited, but sometimes it just feels like these teams they tend to. It seems like sometimes they go conservative, like Miami in the second half, and not everyone's like benching their quarterback, but it does seem like I don't think the defense is coached very well. I'll put it that way.
I disagree there. I think the defense is coached as well as it could be considering the circumstances. It's hard to.
Did you like the way Stingley's being used? I mean,
no.
I'll point to like the end of the Cowboys game. The middle of the field was wide open.
Okay, but like they still forced 3 turnovers in that game.
They forced 3 turnovers, but we talked about Pep Hamilton and we talked about not getting in the one. They allowed the Cowboys to drive right down the field.
Right.
With 2:40 left, like.
I never said it was a good unit. I just said that, if you look at the talent they have.
Do you think they used Stingley right?
No, I don't.
What about Jalen? Petrie, I feel like they found something there. But like I'm talking about like the way they use Stingley, the way they use Petrie, the way
they've used Petrie pretty well. It's they've used Petrie.
He's missed a lot of tackles.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but he's willing to make tackles, so it is what it is. But I think they've used Stingley not as to the best advantage. I think once he got hurt, that's when they started, playing more man, a lot more press, things like that.
Is that weird to you? Was that weird to you?
I think that they just eventually realized that was their best chance of being able to stop the run more, and realizing they had corners that can play, man to man. At the end of the day, like, you have your scheme sometimes, and coaches sometimes get caught up in that, but he adjusted. So I think that if Stingley was healthy, he'd been playing a lot more man recently. But those are for sure one of my complaints was like they didn't use Stingley to his best of his ability. But again, like the run defense, you can't really blame that on Lovie because at the end of the day, like guys were flat out not playing disciplined football and were consistently missing their run fits and falling for eye candy. And, you know, whether they run like an inside zone, they have like a split tight end, a split zone tight end coming across the, you know, across the formation to block the most dangerous, that movement sometimes would trick some of the linebackers, or whether they have movement. And obviously that's why now you see more often you'll see that nickel just follow that motion guy, just so those linebackers can be focused directly on their run assignments, because that's what motion does. Sometimes it can just confuse linebackers and safeties. And then on top of that, like, they've had injuries on the D line. You know, Bernard's missed time, Collins missed time, Addison missed some time. So like when you're not that deep and you're missing guys, that's what happens. And again, when you're very green at linebacker, because the majority of the linebacker group outside of Kirksey are second or first year players, that's what's going to lead to a lot of the, you know, poor run defense. And on top of that, the way Lovie Smith's scheme is, like, he wants to be a lot more too high. If you're going to do more too high, you have to have some nasty interior linebackers and D linemen that can consistently handle being able to handle double teams and shed blocks. So, you know, it is what it is. But you know, eventually they made those adjustments. Now you've seen that the run defense has been drastically better than where it was when they were giving up basically almost like 200.
How many open jobs you see there being this offseason?
So I think the
4,
Titans
5.
I think the Titans job could be open also. Obviously,
Vrabel?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a scenario where if they miss the playoffs, like I
feel like they've already scapegoated Robinson. I think they kind of already showed who they side with there.
All right, yeah, I mean that's fair. I think, you know, Houston, if I had to guess, Houston would probably be open. Indianapolis be open. Denver's obviously open.
I think if the Cowboys don't win a playoff game, I think it's open. I think they're going to go in on Peyton.
All right, I could see that. So that's what, 4, 5?
Yeah. Arizona's open.
So yeah. So I would say those are the ones that come to mind. If Woody Johnson loses his mind, he could fire Saleh, but I don't really see that happening. But he, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that would be something there.
That would be something for sure. But like, if he were to fire Saleh, we'd have to also fire Joe Douglas. He couldn't, like, not too many GMs get to pick 3 coaches. You know, well, I mean, great, he only picked 1. So, but again, he's been there for a while. But I mean, again, I'm just guessing. I'm just spitballing here. I don't really know. So, I mean, obviously, the Washington Post report mentioned that, you know, Saleh could be on the hot seat, but you never know with that. So
that'd be messed up right there.
I agree, because Saleh is a very good coach.
Because the difference, my problem with Lovie and, like, you know, running it back with Lovie is he's a finished product.
Right.
I mean, I don't mean that like as like a bad thing, but I think Robert Saleh is still kind of figuring out how to be a head coach. You could even said that about Coley last year, but like,
right.
So like, I feel like we know what Lovie is. He's been doing this long enough to where you know what Lovie is. So
right.
That's my.
He's not going to change overnight. He is who he is.
Exactly, and he's going to call it the way he calls it.
Right.
We disagreed on the. I think if they miss out on the number 1 pick, I think it's a disaster for a number of reasons.
Why?
There's a lot of reasons.
Explain them.
First of all, having the top pick is better than not having the top pick. Like, I know we can use like examples and we can say, well, you know, this team picked this guy after this guy after that. I get it. Like, I understand that. The second thing is, I think this fan base needs some sort of excitement like that with where they are and with how stagnant things have gone, like and how bad things are. I think a 4-month build up towards the number 1 pick would go a long, long way. Also, they need a quarterback, and they need their choice of the top quarterback. Now, some people will say, well, you know, Chicago's not going to pick a quarterback. Okay, Chicago could trade, and Chicago could trade and not get the quarterback. Now, if you don't think they should draft a quarterback, then you probably like Will Anderson or Carter, and then you miss out on that guy. There's still variables, like they could still pick the wrong guy, But I think just based on all that, they need the number one pick. And also, I don't think they're gaining anything by winning these games. Like, I don't think like especially if like a new culture comes in or there's like a new coach, like that's how you build a culture. You build a culture with like a new coach. You bring in new players, like what Jacksonville did. Like Jacksonville was losing all year last year, and they brought in the three pass catchers that they brought in. They brought in Doug Peterson, and that's how they were able to get stuff done. So I don't think if they don't at least have the number one pick to show for a lot of reasons, I just think it's a disaster. I don't. It's not the end of the world. They can still end up drafting guys, but I just think with all those factors, number one pick, you need something.
All right, so with the quarterback thing, like you could just draft the quarterback at 2. Like it's not.
But what if it's not the one? What if it's not the one you want? What if
they're all gonna be close in grades, like because like there's no generational quarterback in this class. There's no Trevor Lawrence. There's no Justin Fields. There's no Joe Burrow. There's no Justin Herbert. You know what I'm saying? Like guys that are.
You think Justin Fields is like in the same class as those two?
Nah, but I think that if you put Justin Fields in this class, he obviously goes 1. Like, there's no debate.
Probably, maybe.
So that's what I'm saying. Like Bryce is going to get picked apart in the draft process because he's literally like 5'10", 5'11", 180. Like I've had scouts tell me, like he's very small.
Yeah, he's little.
Yeah. So like you're gonna have that. So that's obviously gonna play a factor into his grade. Obviously he does a lot of the quarterback stuff really well. And then like some people are gonna ask like what is his ceiling, right? Like how can he be a guy that you can, that could carry a franchise per se? And we've just never seen somebody at his size do that. So now you got Will Levis. Will Levis doesn't do as much of the quarterback stuff well as Bryce does, but Will Levis does have a little more upside because of his physical tools, right? And he did technically play in a pro-style offense because the UK, they did run a pro-style offense. They ended up firing the offensive coordinator because like the offense was just not working. But again, he played a pro-style offense. He does fit kind of the mold of what you want because he can move. And you have Anthony Richardson, whose ceiling is through the roof, right? His ceiling is absolutely, like, he doesn't have a ceiling. Like, he is exactly what you would want to mold into a franchise guy. Like, he's basically, like, people can say, Will Levis is this year's Josh Allen. Nah, it's Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, we've seen so many wild plays. It's just the play to, like, his highlights are phenomenal. His play to play is still, like, being developed. So, again, like, there's going to be a lot of.
But even with that said, even the possibility of whichever quarterback they like they're going to like someone more. Like you can say they're going to have similar grades, but like Nick Caserio is going to like somebody. Just even like the sheer possibility that Indianapolis calls up Chicago or something else, like even that mere possibility, whether it's small or not, and whether the guy falls into you, I don't. Having like not even having to worry about that and just being able to pick your guy, I don't think winning these games is gaining anything.
That's fair. I'm just saying like it's not like you already said it's not the end of the world, and the reason why I'm telling you why it wouldn't be the end of the world because all these quarterbacks are going to be very close, and it's really going to come down to how you build around them. None of these guys are going to be guys that you drop in and then boom, they're going to be instant successes, and then they're going to be able to carry a franchise. Like we knew very early, Burrow was going to be able to carry a franchise. We knew very early. Herbert could carry a franchise. We knew very early that.
But there were questions about Herbert too, for sure.
Yeah, there were questions, but we knew very early that he's going to be one of those dudes, right? And I just don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to, you're going to know off real. Oh yeah, they can carry an entire franchise, and that's a legitimate difference. And if you don't, all these guys you have to build around correctly. Obviously with Bryce, you're going to have to make sure your offensive line is phenomenal. Right, because he's going to be a smaller guy, and the last thing we knew.
Although Bama's O-line wasn't phenomenal this year.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
That's the thing. Like that, I was talking about this before you got in here. Like, I just like all the film guys and stuff. Like, I don't hear them saying like Bryce Young ever looks short when he plays. Like, I know he's fragile, and I know like the measurables are going to be crazy, but like I never hear anyone say, well, he gets passes batted at the line or whatever, because all the stuff that you need to counter being little, Bryce Young seems to have. Like he's very quick at recognizing blitzes. He's very good pre-snap, all that type of stuff. It seems like he has like the perfect counter for it.
Right. So like that's why I say he does like a lot of the stuff that you need to do at quarterback really well. Like those things you're talking about, like being able to, see the field quickly, process quickly, be able to maneuver in the pocket behind his throwing lane. That's why even passes don't get batted down. It's just when it comes like in terms of being a playmaker at the next level, because he's not a very good athlete. Like like it is what it is. Like he's not going to be able to like create out of nothing consistently. So like you don't want him to live playing that way. Like especially since he's small, because we've seen quarterbacks his size, if they play that type of style, they're going to eventually get hurt. Like we saw, Kyler Murray's been hurt his last 3 years in the league. Tua can't stay healthy at all. Every year Tua's been hurt. So again, like you kind of want him to at the end of the day.
But Tua was hurt in college,
Right.
Like Tua's been like that. That goes back to college. Bryce had the one shoulder thing. Well, it was a shoulder. Yeah, it was a shoulder, but it wasn't like he wasn't like getting thrown around like Tua.
Right. Yeah. And then, but you also have to remember, like Kyler Murray wasn't getting hit like that in college either. The NFL, they just hit harder. So if you're a little guy,
but Kyler was non-contact. His injury was non-contact.
Right. It was non-contact. But what about the year before when he hurt? I think he hurt his ankle, and I think he hurt his ankle the year before that. Like when you're a little guy playing in the NFL, especially at that position, like injuries just tend to happen. Like it is what it is. Like even if you weren't hurt in college, like every quarterback we've ever seen, like for the majority, all of them get hurt eventually. So like that's what I'm saying. All I'm saying is like for longevity, he's going to be a rhythm on script type of quarterback to succeed, which we all know can work at the highest level. Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl that way. So Drew Brees had a long career that way. So it's not like I'm saying he can't be good in the NFL. Like I ain't saying that he can. Like I think he's going to have to bare minimum be a top 20 quarterback. It's just when we're talking about can he be one of the best at the position? Like we've never seen somebody his size ever be one of the best at the position.
Yeah, unless you count Brees.
Right, unless you count Brees. But even Brees was 6 feet, like 2+. Yeah. Bryce is 5'10", under 200.
Yeah. Even Burrow got hurt too. The thing that's gonna bother me about the Bryce Young shit is, and it's gonna be so annoying, is there's a chance he's not good. That's fine. Like there's a chance that any quarterback's not good. But whenever he's not good, it's always going to come back to, see, told you he's too small. Even if there's like nothing that's like showing that he's too small. It's like the Lamar Jackson thing. Like all the people who dug in on Lamar Jackson, like no matter what happens, that it's always like, so you told you this style couldn't last in the NFL. Like you always hear that crap, and it's going to drive me nuts with Young too. Right. I'm anticipating that. There's people dug in on it. Who would you take one if you had to pick?
If I had to pick and I was Nick Caserio, then I'd probably go Bryce. But if I had to pick and I was like a new GM, I would probably go Anthony Richardson. Because I know like I wouldn't mind risking getting fired over a guy with that type of talent. And just, obviously you got to get the right offensive mind. Everybody has to be on board though. Like the GM has to be on board, the coach, the head coach, the offensive coordinator. Everybody has to be on board. Like we're going to develop this guy a la similar to Josh Allen. And we're going to see if we can tap into a phenomenal talent that can, because if he hits his ceiling and he's able to like figure out how to play the position correctly on a play-to-play basis, like we're talking about one of the best quarterbacks in the league because just of that physical talent. But again, like a lot of the position is mental, like for the most part. Like
and Bryce has that. Yeah, Bryce has that.
Bryce already has that, right? So like it just comes down to can Richardson ever, because his floor is like, we're talking about like bottom tier quarterback, but his ceiling is top 5 quarterback, when we're talking about Anthony Richardson. So that's what I would do if I was a new GM, but if I'm Nick Caserio, like you're not going to be able to take that type of risk. You know what I'm saying?
Do you trust Caserio? You think he's a good GM? You think he's going to be a good GM?
Do I trust Caserio?
There's a lot of trust issues with Nick.
I don't know yet.
A lot of people.
I mean, you can't fully say you trust a GM that's fired 2 head coaches in back-to-back years after 1 year. Like how can you say that? And if your team at this point is like they've got 6 wins in 2 years under your tutelage, like how can you say, I trust this guy full-fledged no matter what. Like, that's kind of crazy to say that. Like, he's done some good. Like the 2022 draft, you got Stingley, you got Petrie, you got Pierce, right? We'll see what Kenyon Green turns into. But you got 3 legitimate starters that at the bare minimum, they're going to be starters in the NFL. When you go into a draft, that's the goal, get starters. And they got that. Technically, they have 4 because Kenyon Green started a lot. I mean, he struggled quite a bit, but, you had the 2021 class. Granted, like, he didn't have much draft capital, but who's standing up from that class, He did sign Steven Nelson, which was a good signing. Jerry Hughes, good signing.
I think he's done a good job with the secondary. I think in one offseason he did a good job fixing the secondary a little bit.
I agree. Malik Collins, he was a really good signing. Because like Malik, you see the difference when Malik Collins is out there, especially against the run, versus when he's not out there. I'll probably tweet out a stat when that the run yards per average when he's out there versus when he's off, just to show you like the stark difference. But yeah, so like there's pros and cons, right? Like going into this year without another option at quarterback, like that's kind of crazy. Like you could have easily drafted maybe like a Howell, or maybe you kick the tires on Malik. Well, granted, Malik Willis in the third would have been. I mean, I don't even think they had a third round. Oh, they did have third round, but they took Christian Harris. Yeah, I mean, it's not that there was that many quarterback options, to be honest. So I take that back. So I mean, like, there's been good, there's been bad. Like firing 2 coaches basically after 2 years is kind of crazy. But you do have some good draft picks, but he didn't walk into a good situation, so there was some cleaning up that he had to do. So we'll see. It's a mixed bag. That's what I'll say. So
I compare it to like I think he did a decent job getting through the mud. Although like the cap nerds think that he did a weird thing because they have $75 million in dead cap right now, and $5 million is on like Marcus Cannon, and then there's 5 like they're like for where they're going to be after this season, like they got through the mud. Like I think he did an excellent job with the Watson trade, like given the limitations. I thought he did an excellent job of that. But it's like Sashi Brown with the Browns. They had him for their GM for 2 years. They got through the mud, and then they just drafted a guy where if you give him an 18-pack of beer and just let him draft guys, he's going to draft his ass off in John Dorsey.
Right.
Like, would you even consider bringing in a new guy at this point, or do you think Caserio is going to, like, how do you think his approach changes? Like, is there going to, because surely it's going to, given like the situation they're in, but there have been situations like in Cleveland where Sashi gets you through the mud, and then you bring in John Dorsey and he drafts his ass off, and they got rid of him after 3 years.
Yeah, I think you gotta keep you keep Nick Caserio, because again he's been here only 2 years. Like this is his second season. If you think about how bad it would look. If you fire 2 coaches and a GM after 2 years, that is, you hired Nick Caserio in 2021, and by 2023 you'd fire your GM and fire 2 coaches. Like who's gonna, like, what good candidates can you get if you do that? So.
I just think it's way different though this year than the last 2, because you don't have the Watson cloud, you don't have the crappy cap space, you have the draft capital. It's just such a different, like the whole, like, you can't fire 2 coaches in 2 years. I get, but in this situation with how crappy it was, it seems like it's a little bit different than like, just like a normal.
So why not? So why not just kept Cuddly, and then David Cuddly, and then.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
I think that question matters more if they run it back with Lovie, because I think firing Lovie after Culley is actually the opposite. I look at it the opposite way. I look at it as, okay, that makes more sense to me.
No, I agree. That makes sense to fire, to fire Lovie after this year, because like he was never the long-term answer.
Right. So
like we get rid of him now, that makes sense. But if you run it back, I'm like, that's interesting. But yeah, man. You're not off base. I think that Nick Caserio's approach, because he'll probably be here, will just he got to start winning, have an answer at quarterback, and start putting a better product out on the field. Because it's so weird. I know you've noticed, like, the road games, they rarely get blown out. They've only gotten blown out in one road game, I believe. Obviously the Raiders game, but they were in it in the fourth quarter, right? They just kind of came off Miami was the only road game where they actually get blown out. Where at home, like they've suffered a lot more blowouts, and you've seen the crowds, like from a business perspective, like you got to get seats out there because before the game starts, like 15 minutes before the game, it looks dead. It looks dead.
Dead.
Right.
And that's why like number one pick and that type of stuff, I think matters.
But I mean, if you get the number two pick, and let's say Chicago keeps the number one pick and they don't trade out, and then they just end up,
But there's a certain buzz around like teams having the number one pick. Like it's just, I just think like any amount of buzz here would just add to.
You don't think there was buzz around the Detroit Lions with the number 2 overall pick?
Detroit? I mean, I don't think it was as high as Jacksonville having one.
Jacksonville,
yeah.
Like, well, what was? There was no quarterback. So I think like
they didn't. But the year before it was high. The year before with Lawrence, it was all high with Jets.
But and there was plenty of buzz, but the Jets, the number 2 pick, plenty of buzz.
But there's always buzz with the Jets. Like that's the thing. Like I'm not sitting here saying this is the mindset in New York or anywhere else. I'm just saying here there's clear problems, there's clear trust issues, there's clear apathy, and just like any amount of buzz.
Well, you don't think so let's play it out. Let's say the Bears get the number 1 pick, right?
Yeah.
And they don't draft a quarterback. You're really gonna sit here and tell me that there wouldn't be buzz around the number 2?
No, there'd be draft day buzz. I'm talking about the buzz leading up to. I feel like there's like a little more buzz.
There would be a lot. But again, even leading up to the draft, you don't think there'd be buzz around the Texans having a number 2 overall pick, knowing that they're
not as much as one.
Knowing that they're going to get a quarterback.
But there's still but there's still a lot of variables. There's mercy. There's this could happen, that could happen.
But again, I'm talking hypothetical that again the Bears stay at the number 1 pick. So you're gonna sit here and tell me there won't be any buzz?
There'll be buzz, not the ultimate buzz. I want the ultimate buzz here. That's the thing. I want the ultimate, like the ultimate buzz, as much buzz as possible. Yeah, I'm not saying people are gonna like revolt if they don't get number 2, but I like the ultimate buzz. The Texans are on the clock type of thing. I also think it looks better when you have number 1. The number 1 pick in the second round and in third round is just as big. Like I like having that top pick in the second round too.
I get it. I'm just saying like this, the buzz still gonna be there. You still got to hit on the picks. And then
of course you got to hit on picks.
Hit on the picks. I mean, like the buzz, that buzz is gonna fizzle out quickly because like, all right, you had a number 1 overall pick, you had a number 2 overall pick.
But it ain't just bottom line here. I don't think. I think they need a star. I don't know if this comes into play, but like Bryce Young's already a star. Like, and I'm not saying that's like.
Yeah, I agree there.
And look, I'm not saying that's the right mindset. I'm not. If I were a GM, right, I'm not saying that would be my mindset. But in this situation, you get a guy who's already having Dr. Pepper commercials and all that type of crap.
Star. Yeah, you're right. He's a star. Yeah, because you're right. Because when Burrow came into the league, he was already a star in terms of coverage. Same with Tua because he had all the hype and the hip, and there's a lot of buzz with that. Herbert didn't have any.
Yeah, Herbert. Yeah, Herbert was just an Oregon quarterback, and there were questions about him.
Right.
All that type of stuff. So why does Lovie get mad at you guys at press conferences sometimes?
Because they were losing. That's all. They were just losing. That's all it was.
How does someone get mad at Brooks?
I don't think he was. Oh, you're right. Because so the setup with that was just me, Brooks, Aaron, Jonathan, and like one other TV guy. So like the way it was set up to where I could ask a lot of questions, Brooks could ask a lot of questions, and Jonathan could ask a lot of questions. And when it's set up like that,
you ask a lot of questions.
We're gonna ask a lot of questions, especially when you're down 30 to zip at half, and and then when you want to try to lean on the moral victory stuff, it's like, bro, they sat their quarterback.
Yeah, you brought that up to him. You brought that up to him.
The Texans forced the Dolphins to sit their quarterback.
Because he got hit in the second half. They realized the payoff wasn't there and it was already over.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, that was funny. The moral victory, the close, all that. Like most NFL games are close. Like, and not. I mean,
that's true though. Most NFL games are close.
Yeah. So like I hate the whole close thing drives me nuts. The fans seem to be annoyed by that. Let's focus on the positives. Although I actually defended him against the Dallas game and the Kansas City game. I actually said, well, I actually think you can focus on positives here. Like I'm on board with this, but after like the Miami, the Washington, fans kind of seem to be a little bit annoyed by that in that situation.
Yeah, and I can understand that. Man, who wants to hear about positives when you're down 30-zip, and who wants to hear about positives against Commandos when you get dominated for the most part? So I get that. I think against those last two games you mentioned, the Cowboys and Chiefs game, they came ready to play, and they had a good game plan. They figured. I don't know how the Jeff Driscoll thing still works, because they've been able to score points ever since. I think they're averaging like about.
It almost seems like Davis Mills benefits from getting like an occasional breather or something like that in like a weird way.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird. I mean, that fourth quarter, he was money against the Titans. I think he went 9 for 9, touchdown. I think like threw for over 100 yards, passer rate 151. Like that was probably the best fourth quarter he's played in his life.
Did you get to go home these holidays, or in Houston?
I'm in Houston. I was in Houston for Christmas. I always got stuck in Nashville though, but I'm here.
Yeah, don't travel. Don't travel.
Nah,
don't travel this
Southwest.
Christmas. Yeah, don't travel this Christmas. This ain't normal, by the way. This ain't normal. I know you just got here. That Christmas weather ain't normal. It ain't. And it sucks too. Don't let anyone try to tell you that was cool. Like this cold weather thing.
Nah, it was terrible.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. I appreciate you, dude. I'll see you on Sunday at the game.
All right, no problem. Thank you for having me.
One more. All right, man. That's DJ Bien-Aime of ESPN here in the locker room. So he doesn't think it's the end of the world with the if they don't get the number 1 pick. I disagree. But the buzz I just think needs to be max high, and I would rather draft at the top than not at the top. Obviously, you gotta draft good players. We are aware of that, but that's DJ. Very busy dude. Tonight I'll be on the Cap and Trade show with Texans Cap. We will also get into a lot of things. Hopefully Cap has some energy today. He had his best show last week. That was his best show. Couple rough ones before that, but that was his best show. I think he's in here, so I'm just messing with Cap. But I'll be on the Cap and Trade show today at 9. Probably get some more tickets for games, and I'll get you hooked up with those if listeners throw them my way. And I'm off. I'm not doing radio this week. Had to take a little break, like everyone else. So subscribe to the channel at Landry Locker on Twitter, at Landry Locker on Instagram. Follow DJ Bien-Aime's work at ESPN.com. And no matter what happens, number 1 pick, not number 1 pick, whoever wins tailgater of the year, just remember, we're all in this together. Have a good one.